Hello, welcome to another episode of the MABE podcast. My name is Andrew Rogers. I am the MABE president, and I will be your host today. And today we are pleased to welcome Andrea Honigsfeld. She will be talking about the power of storytelling. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to reconnect with you and to be part of this podcast series.
Thank you so much, and we're so looking forward to you being keynote on day one at our MABE conference this year. We will release this before the conference, so that's very nice. And again, the theme this year is every teacher, a multilingual learner teacher, every teacher, an ML teacher. And you're just a wonderful fit for that theme, given your extensive work. But without further ado, a little bit about you. Andrea Honigsfeld is a professor in the School of Education and Human Services at Malloy University, Rockville Center, New York, where she teaches graduate courses related to cultural and linguistic diversity and TESOL methodology. She frequently offers professional learning opportunities, primarily focusing on effective content and language integration strategies and collaborative practices for English language development and bilingual dual language specialists and general education teachers. She has co-authored over 60 articles and chapters and co-authored or co-edited over 30 books, 11 of which are national bestsellers. So kudos to you. You've done some great work, and I'm so excited to hear you tell us about the power of storytelling. So why is personal storytelling such a powerful way to connect with our multilingual learners?
Storytelling has been around for such a long time. If you think of it, it's an ancient human tradition to tell our story, to tell the world what is happening to us, as well as stories that we maybe make up, maybe something that is partially based on real life events and partially based on hopes and fears and future goals. So storytelling, in a way, connects our humanities to each other. It's a human need to be connected. We can't live in isolation. That's much of also my other line of work, which is on teacher collaboration, co-teaching, co-planning, coming up with ways to integrate content and language. So it's no surprise that I'm also very much interested in the power of storytelling, which I will bring to my keynote at MABE. If we can think about storytelling in unique and creative ways, it's not just oral, not just an oral tradition, but we tell stories through art, through music. So if you think about our multilingual learners, before they might have their fully developed linguistic capacity to tell a story in English, they are going to tell their stories in their primary languages, in their home languages, or sometimes teachers refer to them in their heart language, whatever language comes to them first when they think in terms of their own lives, their past, their present, and future. So we also write stories. We tell stories to each other. So it's multimodal, multilingual, sometimes even multisensory. We could dance our stories. So I'm just truly fascinated by this opportunity to share with everyone at MABE on how powerful it is to think of our stories and our students' stories to be told.
Yes, I mean, and it's obviously beneficial for the storyteller to create a narrative around their life, but also then for teachers who don't always understand the cultural backgrounds of our students as well, and create a space for that to occur.
Absolutely. Because when our multilingual learners tell their stories, their family stories, then they name what's important to them. They have an opportunity, not that we give them a voice, they already have a voice, but their stories will have a new context to be told. They can also think about the possibilities. They might be telling us about what happened to them, what they wish could happen to them in the future. They can make sense of some of the things that are happening in the world, in their immediate environment, in the classroom, in their schools, in their communities, or in the countries or places where their families originally came from. So it allows us teachers to understand their perspectives, their points of view, their rich experiences in and outside of the school context that might not always fit into the curriculum. That's not part of the standards-based math curriculum, science or social studies curriculum, maybe in ELA. We have a little bit in language arts. We have a little bit of
Mhm.
an opportunity to bring in that narrative writing, storytelling, and so forth, poetry as well. But in other content areas, there's rarely a chance for our students to bring their personal experiences, their lived experiences to the forefront.
So on that note, what are some ways that we can integrate storytelling?
Well, as I mentioned, primarily in the content areas that work with the narrative genre, there is definitely an opportunity in all of those content areas from kindergarten all the way up to higher education and beyond, where through genre study, we understand that there are different ways that we use language and literacy in our content areas. And one of them is the narrative genre, which could be and should be strongly focused on our students, our multilingual learners, ways of representing their own stories, their own lives. But as I mentioned, storytelling does not have to be limited to language-based storytelling. So
Mhm.
in classes that have any kind of artistic expressions, if a school has makerspace approaches to engaging our students, music, dance, creative arts, drama, any other forms of artistic expression could also be connected to our students' stories. Stories themselves could be multimodal. Stories can definitely fit into and be integrated into classes that use technology. Stories can be storyboarded, combining visual representations with verbal storytelling features. I'm just so excited to think about how much we learn about our students and they can learn about each other when we open up the opportunity for them to tell their stories, because their stories matter. And when they feel heard, seen, and valued, we develop empathy for each other. We lean into those stories and we show our true appreciation for where the students have come from and where they're heading in their lives.
It sounds too like it's a way in which our multilingual learners can see their life's experiences from an additive lens as opposed from either a neutral or subtractive lens. And by that, I just mean, that they're seeing the benefits of their background, in the moment. It might feel like, again, it's not easy to come and have to learn a new language and learn a new culture. And sometimes too, you just the experience can feel as though it is not preferable. But we all have our own lives. But here is a chance for them to see, like, no, this is my life, this is my experience, and it's the way it was supposed to be. It is meaningful to me. It is helping me contribute to who I am and what I can contribute to the world.
And as you said, through this process, we're also listening to each other's stories. So storytelling, by definition, includes a listener because somebody's
Mhm.
going to have to listen to that story that one person tells another person. And in a classroom context, it's so important that our students also learn to listen with their full attention rather than waiting to engage in a response that might not build on the previous person's ideas. Also building empathy, um, a respect for each other, respect for different experiences and different perspectives, and nurturing that curiosity. Where did you
Yeah.
come from? What have you learned in your life before you came to this classroom? It's very interesting because this literally, I came home yesterday from Hungary, which is my
Mhm.
country of origin, and I flew out of JFK Terminal 8, if, in case anybody is around that particular place in the world. And a gigantic wall was covered with personal stories. And the
Uh,
title of the exhibit was something, I took a picture, I should have double checked, something like, "What does it feel like to be me?" Or "What would it feel like to be me?" And each smaller poster in this gigantic exhibit was somebody else's perspective on what it feels like to be me. So I think we have that natural urge to tell the world who we are. There were so many exhibits already in place, and they were inviting the passengers, the passerbys, to just, okay, sit down for a moment, take 5 minutes, take maybe 15, 20 minutes, and tell your story. And there were
Mhm.
so many people who were interested in contributing. So I think there's definitely that urge to tell our story, but then there's also a need to listen to each other, to take the time to understand and truly with compassion lean into listening to other people's stories.
Yeah, and for what you mentioned, I'm sure JFK is probably the best place in the United States to find people coming in and, hear those stories from them.
Yes.
So you did mention different modalities, different ways that storytelling can occur. But then, how have you thought at all about how newcomers could tell their stories? Because often, they're the ones where you want to give people time. You want to give them a moment, for their own reflection. Like let them, you know, get used to their life somewhat. But at the same time, how can newcomers tell their stories when they don't have the English language skills that the audience might need?
We certainly value multilingualism and multilingual expression, translanguaging opportunities, hopefully also combined with artistic expressions, as simple as a comic strip or a timeline, a personal timeline could tell the story of a newcomer with milestones. Where were you born? Do you have any siblings? So if teachers model that process of creating a personal timeline, creating a comic strip about some important aspects of their lives, they can be stick figures. They don't have to be um, artistic masterpieces, but simply a way for ourselves as teachers, as educators, and our students to understand what the goal is. The goal is to share some important events in our lives, posters, collages, heart maps, lots of different ways our newcomers could express themselves. They could certainly combine other forms of artistic expression. I can maybe share with you and your audience that during my keynote, I'm going to sing in Hungarian. Yes, if I'm brave enough in front of 700 people, then I will sing in Hungarian because we can weave different languages, different forms of expression into our storytelling, even if nobody's going to understand the exact words in that audience. But everybody will understand and hopefully appreciate the emotional expression that comes from contextualizing a song that I will share about. And then I actually sing that song because it was such an important song in my upbringing. So I think thinking again, going back to that key prefix I mentioned earlier, I always love that prefix, and that prefix is multilingual, multimodal, multisensory, multiple modes of expression could all fit into our work with multilingual learners at all stages of language development. They can make their own storybooks. They can create their storybooks and use different modalities of expressing key events in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely see how that, uh, it's first about them, but it should not be a challenge at all to understand with cues and prompting what the story is that they are trying to tell. So that sounds like that would be a great opportunity um, for our multilingual learners, especially our newcomer students. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Andrea. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us? Anything else we should look forward to at MABE?
Just the opportunity for us to embrace the theme of the conference, which is every teacher is a teacher of multilingual learner, and every teacher is also um, a critical storyteller because we all bring our own stories, but also we have to bring our very empathetic and important listening skills to this conversation with our students.
Yeah, it's funny just as you mentioned that, I was thinking, when you're explaining, I'm thinking of it in terms of being, who I am essentially, a teacher of English as a second language, as we call it where I am. Um, but again, that's something that can break down that disconnect that happens sometimes with content area teachers who, don't see things that way, that we're slowly trying to encourage that, they are the teachers of these students just the same as we are on many levels. So it's important that we all understand, where everybody's coming from and that we create a community where everyone, can learn together and we can all have positive experiences. All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. We will see you next week at the MABE conference.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.